On this podcast, we talk often about life, loss, and what truly matters. And part of that is taking care of the life we've been given. Did you know that cardiovascular disease and stroke are two of the leading causes of death in the U.S.? Yet 80% of these can actually be prevented. That's why I've partnered with Lifeline Screening. They offer a package of 4 quick, painless screenings for just $159. It's one appointment at one of over 14,000 locations across the country. No needles, no hospital gowns, no hassle. Just simple tests that can bring peace of mind or provide early detection. Lifeline Screening has already screened more than 10 million people, so don't wait. A simple screening can change the rest of your life. Click the link in my show description to schedule your appointment today. And now for today's episode. Welcome back to the Grief Observed podcast. I'm your host, Brad Morrell. And if you would like to join me for an episode, you can find me on Facebook, Gmail, or TikTok, all under the name of Grief Observed Podcast. Just send me a message and we will get you on the podcast. My guest today is Sarah. She is a holistic grief and trauma coach. I found her on TikTok and found her story very interesting and thought I'd bring her on. Sarah, thanks for coming on the show. How are you this morning?
I'm okay. Thank you for asking me to come on.
Yeah, I say morning. It's morning here, and it's afternoon there, or pretty close to it.
Yeah, near one
So
o'clock.
this is the great part about our world, our digital world. You know, we can talk to each other and see each other here and share stories. That I love TikTok. I've really gotten into TikTok. You know, I heard stories long ago like, "Oh, TikTok's horrible," but
Mm,
um, now I've gotten into it, and it's just really neat to hear grief stories from around the world. And
yeah,
everybody's got their own niche, I guess, with TikTok. And, you know, you start searching and the algorithm kind of builds around what you're looking for. But I see so many touching grief stories. So anyway, I'll back off here and let you tell the listeners a little bit more about who you are.
yeah. So I guess I turned my pain into purpose really. When my brother died in 2018 from cancer, he had bowel cancer
Mhm.
and he passed away within 5 months of diagnosis. So I think for me, I kind of just went into autopilot as you do in grief and forced back into that. I've got to get on with my life because that's what I feel I have to do.
Mm,
Society really pressures you to get back to, well, you try and get back to where the person you were before. Little did I know that that person didn't exist.
that's
Um,
exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
You're always transformed, right? You know, I always say it's like trying to get back to a place that no longer exists.
Yeah, but it took me I'd say it took me the best part of 5 years to realize that I'm trying to get back a person that's no longer there.
Mm,
Uh, and I think that's when it started to change for me. And I went back to my full-time job in the corporate world, had a family and a partner and just bumbled along really. I think I just existed, um, and just masked up every day to go to work and come home and the mask come off and I was exhausted.
mm,
Um, and then I think it took a very stressful period of time at work in 2023 that started for me. Basically, my mental health suffered through work and I had a burnout and I was medically retired
mm.
at the age of 44. I have chronic conditions as well. So I think, with grief, and I talk a lot about that, on my social media platforms, having chronic illness and grief on top, having grief alone is a lot. But when you're carrying chronic illnesses and something had to give, I think, and I left work and I I'd already started my training before I started to leave as a holistic grief and trauma coach. But actually, it just gave me the push. Come on, Sarah, you just need to find yourself. You need to find your purpose, and it was a calling for me, I think.
Yeah, you're speaking about illness and grief hand in hand, and I openly admit I love some of the work that Mary Frances O'Connor does. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but she has a couple of books, The Grieving Brain and The Grieving Body.
Yeah,
And I have to admit also that The Grieving Brain, the first one, is my favorite. But when you're speaking about the body, certainly The Grieving Body is a better book to look at. And she reveals her own illness with MS. And
yeah,
she's very careful to state, okay, uh, grief did not cause the MS.
yeah,
But grief activated the thing that was already there. It was almost,
mm,
and I don't even want to say dormant. It's just that there was nothing noticeable about her symptoms until grief activated that or acknowledged that something was going on in the body. And she
yeah,
talks about that grief is it's almost like a magnifying glass for the things that are already present in our lives. And we have to start paying attention to those things. So sadly, it takes grief a lot of times for us to recognize those things.
mm,
But once we do, you can't go back to the way that you once were, just like you were stating.
yeah. Definitely. And I think that's why I was drawn to being a holistic grief and trauma coach. I was going to go down the counselling route and I was going to study for 3 years. But the more I really looked into it, my brother was all about, he was a functional nutritionist. I'll tell you a bit about that later, but it was all about the mind, body, and spirit. And that is exactly what holistic is. It's somatic, it's in the body, our nervous systems and the grief affects every single part of our body.
That's right.
Um, so that's what drew me to, and it just resonated with me. And I just thought, this is exactly what I want to do.
Yeah, I like the holistic approach, and I speak about that whenever I do grief seminars. You've got the mind, the body, the spirit or soul, and we have to treat all those things, I think, for a person to be truly functional. Because if I'm only treating the physical, there's still two parts of you that's suffering.
Yeah.
And I think when you're open or when a client is open to let's look at all aspects of life. I feel like it's like you're tuning in three different parts of you, and when you do that, it's just going to work better. It's like if I'm only tuning one part of a car, I'm still
Mm.
going to have rattles
Yeah.
elsewhere through the car, or something's going to be off balance. But if I start tuning in all that, it's like, wow, this ride is really starting to smooth out. And it's not instant, right? There's a lot of give and play and understanding. I speaking more about the spiritual side, it's like I have a lot of clients that come into the office and um, maybe they don't know where they're at, or maybe they had a strong faith before, but um, grief kind of rocked their world, and now it's like I don't know what I believe anymore. And it's like, okay, let's talk about that. And I never try to push anything on anyone as far as uh, body, mind, or spirit. But I try to meet people where they're at. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times after grief, people just don't know where they're at, right?
Yeah. They're lost.
Yeah, yeah. We lose a part of ourselves in grief, and we don't recognize that it's not only the physical loss, whether it's a brother or a parent, a child, but we lose a very, very large portion of ourselves too. Our identity is forever changed. We may always be a father or a sister, right? It's that title doesn't change, but who we are internally has to change. That person that was with us is no longer there to fulfill a certain role in our life. at least actively, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's what, I talk about a lot. Losing a sibling is a bond like no other. They're the only ones that have had those memories with you from from youngsters, Um, and you
Yeah,
feel,
so your brother was a couple of years older than you, so he was everything that you ever knew from the time you were born, right?
yeah, yeah, he lived round the corner from me. We were so lucky growing up that we always stayed in the same town where we lived. I'd pick his kid, our kids went to the same nursery, the same school.
Hmm.
He has two children and I have two children, and the four of them are really, really close. And you just think, what is my role now? What is my role? It is identity loss is such a huge part of that, but it is what is my role? I have to step up now for and be there for my mum, like my brother would as well, and his children and everybody's uh things we were meant to do together,
Hmm.
responsibilities. I won't go into that, but we had responsibilities together, financially, and it was all just left to me.
Hmm.
And decision making on certain things was, yeah, it's really crazy. It's hard. It's a bond like no other.
Yeah, I would agree only from a standpoint of the people that I've talked to over the years. I'm blessed to have both of my siblings. I've got an older sister and a younger sister. But I think the sibling relationship is probably one of the most misunderstood when it comes to grieving. I had an author on, it's been many, many podcasts ago, who wrote a book about losing her brother. And she said one of the most hurtful things for her was the fact that people would come up to her and be like, "Hey, how's your mom and dad doing?" And it's like, "Whoa, you just totally skipped how I feel about losing
Mm.
my brother here." And
Yeah.
I was just like, "Wow, I've never really thought about that, but that's got to be so hurtful that people just uh I won't say deny your relationship, but they ignore your relationship with your brother, right? I don't know. Did you experience that?
Yeah, do you know what? It's not until you've actually said that I'm like, I relate to that 100%. That is so many people. Usually, how's your mum doing? Yeah, I rarely get asked, how are you, Sarah? How,
Yeah.
and it's not about me. And I'm not saying that, it is about me. It's not, but that it is so right. It is just pushed to the side.
Well,
And
and I'm gonna lightly disagree with you, Sarah, because I feel like your grief is about you, and some like your mother's grief is about her, your grief
Mm.
is about you, and I don't think that we can discount anybody's grief. And I think that's what happens so often in the grief world is, we're willing to almost be sacrificial in places like that. Like, okay, well, let me tell you how mom's doing and she's, blah blah blah, but we lay down our own grief so much, but there's the age old question, whose grief is worse? And I always
Yeah,
say yours, right? It's
yeah,
your grief that's worse.
yeah.
Even if let's say you had another sibling, they're going to grieve the loss of your brother differently than you. Their
Mm.
grief is very much their story, whereas yours is your story, even though you lost the same sibling.
Yeah.
So I feel like too many times we do just kind of lay down our own grief to explain the grief of another. Um, and I don't know. I don't think you should discount your grief or anybody for that fact. Like your grief is the worst, truly,
Yeah. I
because
think
it's
it's more,
experiential, right? It's what you
yeah.
live every day.
Yeah, I think it's more, not that my grief isn't valid. I think it's more that I didn't want to take it away from my mum.
I understand that. And that
Yeah.
that shows a lot about your character too, that you're willing to, okay, step aside and yeah, let's talk about her. And but at the same time, um, we have to have those moments where we look at our own grief and just what does this mean to me? And
Mm.
certainly I do want to get into later here about you have made meaning through your brother's death, right? And I think that's where um, when we can make meaning out of it all, and sometimes it takes years for us to make meaning of a death. Like nobody ever wants to go through this. Uh, it's something that we forcibly go through. As we age, the more death that we're going to see. Um, it's I did a TikTok video about that. I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, and I stated I was walking with my dog and thought, um, the longer I live, because I just hit 50, but the longer I live, the more funerals that I have attended.
Mm.
And when I think about that, it's like, well, there's going to be less people. Those people are not going to be at my funeral, right? So the older we live, the more funerals we attend, but the less people that's going to be at ours. It's very,
Yeah.
very weird thought.
It is. I've had those thoughts as well. It is very, very weird thoughts, but yeah.
Well, tell me more about your brother. Tell me who he was and what he meant to you.
Oh, do you know when people ask me that, I actually just don't even know where to start. I feel like I just,
Kind of locks up in the soul and the mind.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, just I want to combust,
Mm,
with
mm,
pride and everything about him. But he was such a legend, and I look up at him now and see pictures in front of me, but. He was, so when he got diagnosed with MS in 2012, he was a builder by trade and he had his own business. And MS meant that he lost the feeling in his legs. Therefore, he had to change his job.
mm,
He needed to work from home more, so he became a functional nutritionist. So he would work with people with cancer and MS and so work on their nutrition for autoimmune diseases.
mm.
And he
Wow.
would travel, yeah, and he would travel Europe to take extra courses, to do a diploma in certain things and do his talks, did talks for the MS Society. And do you know what? It wasn't until he passed away at his funeral that I realised on his Facebook page and at the funeral itself, the people that turned up, your brother changed my life.
Mm,
Your brother gave me my life back through nutrition, because my brother studied so hard. My brother would never take any steroids or pills that the doctors or neurologists would throw at him.
mm.
Didn't want to go down that route. And he did it all by nutrition and looking after his body, whether that was yoga, meditation. He stuck to a paleo, gluten-free keto diet.
Yeah.
Really strict with what he ate, and really looked after himself. Um, MS and cancer don't go hand in hand. His oncologist told him that, his consultant. I've never seen it in 25 years.
Wow.
But unfortunately, what he thought was MS because masked his cancer symptoms,
Wow.
the fatigue, the pain. Did he eat something wrong? And it was bowel cancer.
Wow.
And it was too far. His cancer was too aggressive to even have chemo by the time he was diagnosed in April 2018.
Mm, wow. Yeah, I don't know that I've ever known of anyone to have MS and cancer at the same time. I'm sure that, there are several out there that have, but it's wow. So I can definitely see how certain symptoms would overlay and mask other things that were going on in the body.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And yeah, so he died in September 2018, and he fought it his way. He was, like I say, he called himself an MS warrior. He did jujitsu. He was actually in his most fittest state, end of 2017 going into 2018, with his jujitsu. And, you know, you sit there and you think that just doesn't make sense.
Mm.
But he fought his cancer his way. Let's put it that way. He fought it his way, his
Yeah.
body. He told his consultant, well, you don't know what bag of tools I've got. And off he
Mm.
went. I've got my own tools to use. And that was his willpower. And he did it his way right to the end. But yeah, going on to the funeral, all these people that would say, I don't know what I would have done without your brother's advice. And
Mm.
it turned symptoms around for a lot of people, like diabetes and things, through nutrition. And I was just so tired. I just thought, how did I not know this? How's
Mm.
it taken for him to pass away for me to realize what an amazing, I knew he was amazing, but what he'd done for other people and the legacy that he left behind. And I thought, if I can honor him in any way, it would be, I didn't actually know at the time what I wanted to do, but I thought I've got to do something. And I didn't know for 5 years. So
Yeah, you've spoken of the word legacy a couple of times in our conversation, and you know, to have a legacy, unfortunately, it does require a passing away,
mm,
but to be able to state, he has passed on, and left a legacy, something to admire and cherish, and to know that he's really affected so many people when he was here. That's amazing.
yeah.
So I'm going to ask you um, a tough question, Sarah, and the question is, uh, when you pass away, what do you hope people say about you?
Do you know what? I've actually thought about that. And I think when the way I see his children, okay, they were 7 and 8 when he passed away, but now they can see what I'm doing off the back of their dad.
Mm,
And I have thought about that. I want my children to go, do you know what? My mum helped people when they needed it most
mm, yeah, yeah,
because I lived it. I lived that and I shared that with others. And yeah, that's what I'd like them to. I think they can kind of see it now. Um, they've seen my social media pages, although they do cringe a little bit. Um,
they're kids. They have to do that.
yeah, mainly my young one on because he's on TikTok. But yeah, I think they say that my mum helped others. I'd like to think that they would think that.
Yeah. So you're definitely helping others now.
Mm.
Did it first, did you have to get to a place where you started understanding your own grief better, or do you feel like it's you started helping others as you started understanding your own grief? And I don't think there's a right or wrong on that. I just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean that I've got life figured out. Like there's certain parts of life and I'll be honest, like there's a lot of times where I learn things from my clients, I never want to get to a place where I feel like I'm unable to learn and I'm only there to teach others. But anyway, did you integrate your own grief as you're helping others, or do you feel like you had to get to a certain place before you could start helping others?
I would say, oh, I mean, there's never a right time, is there? But I guess with my work. And it goes back to what you said earlier about you work on one thing, but you need to actually work on a lot of things, a few things to get it all. And I couldn't go back to the gym. I'd always been to the gym, but it reminded me of my brother.
Mm,
And he was always in the gym. And then it got to a point, well, why am I eating well? Why am I sticking to, because I stick to a strict, keto diet, if I'm not going to the gym? What's the kind of point in that? Or why am I eating wrong but going to the gym? It's just kind of, why am I not looking after myself with self-care? Why am I not going to yoga and doing my breathing and just basically taking time for myself? Nothing was aligned. I was doing one thing at a time. That's all I
Mm.
could kind of cope with.
Yeah.
It took for me to leave my court, as I say, when I was medically retired, and I could finally breathe again because I wasn't masking. And I'm not telling everyone to go out and leave your job because we all can't do that. But when I kind of stepped away from the corporate world, I was eating well. I got back into the gym after 5 years. I'm 4 times a week. I do a lot of breathing exercises. I do a lot of self-care, whether that is going on a spa day or having a beauty treatment or having your hair done even, I couldn't do that for 5 years.
Mm.
But I knew something had to give to get all these things in line. And I thought I had it all sorted out before I started my qualification. I actually thought I did. That's why I did it. Because I thought, I'm okay. I've worked on myself, I've worked on my body. But actually, doing the qualification taught me I wasn't there.
Mm.
So many things come up.
Yeah, you mentioned self-care, and I'm a big advocate for self-care. I'm gonna go do some self-care later. I get a massage every 2 weeks. Like
Yeah,
it is
same.
essential. And
Yeah.
you think about especially as a grief and trauma coach, you're taking on a lot of emotion and a lot of things from the people that you assist. And
Mm.
I have so much tension in my jaws and neck and shoulders. It's just like, oh my gosh. I wouldn't change anything about what I do. I love what I do. This is just extra for me, like the podcast and the TikTok. That's just me trying to inform and hopefully helping people either on the initial backside of a loss or maybe prepare them for a future loss. Like that's kind of my way of giving to others, I guess. And I'm not trying to just make myself out to be some super charitable person, but this is my passion. This is what I love to do, but I have to take care of me first, right?
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to understand that. And I can always feel when I'm taking on too much. I said yes to way too many things at the end of this year, and they were good things. I had two grief seminars that I taught 2 weekends ago.
Yeah.
Those were things that I wanted to do. I love those things, but I could feel my shoulders just climbing up into my neck, and it's like, man, I've got to slow down here. And it's not that I feel like anything major is wrong. It's just sometimes doing the right things or the good things in life still can bring on a lot of pain and anxiety to our lives. So when you mention self-care, I'm a big advocate for that. And I feel like everybody who's going through grief right now needs to key into that as well. I don't care if it's like you said, a spa day, go get your hair and nails done, go
Yeah.
get a massage, go for a walk around the park. Those are just things that say I love me,
Yeah.
and we have to have those moments. It's not selfish. I definitely want people to understand it's not a selfish move.
Mm.
Especially when you think about, okay, you had kids when this is going on, and yes, there's mouths to be fed. Kids need to go off to school. Things still happen. Bills have to be paid. None of that stops. But you have to take at least those micro moments to breathe life back into yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the emotion, as you said, selfish comes up, but also a big thing around self-care is the guilt. It's
Mm,
like, I can do that, but my brother can't go and do that. Why
yeah.
how can I go and do that? My brother can't do that. Guilt plays such a huge part. And like I say, I existed for 5 years until I could say, and not only that, I didn't want to walk into a hairdresser's. I found it overwhelming and I didn't want to have the conversation about my brother with my hairdresser. I just
Mm.
didn't want to be in that environment. So you've got the overwhelming, the anxiety, the guilt that hits you. Like I say, it took me 5 years, but now I have a massage every 2 weeks. But that's part of my toolkit. That's part of, I go back to what my brother said, it's part of his tools, like your medication is, people that take medication, your self-care should be part of your kind of toolkit.
Yeah.
And having a massage is to me. That's it all links into one another. But guilt plays a huge part, and I totally relate to that.
Yeah. Let's speak a moment. You mentioned avoidance, and I think that a lot of people do avoid when it comes to grief, and it could be the guilt factor. There's a lot of things that play into why we avoid topics, why we avoid certain places. Sometimes those are triggers that, okay, I remember going to, you know, this restaurant with my brother, or I remember doing this at this park. So I can see a place avoidance, but you're also talking about you avoided the places that you knew conversation would come up and you weren't ready to speak about those things. Tell me
Yeah.
more about avoidance.
I would say as well, it was if I find it easier to talk to, I think the hairdresser I knew, people that I knew, and I didn't want to go to a supermarket in case I bumped into someone that he knew and we knew that we went to school together. Find it easier to speak to strangers, which actually you would think it's the other way round. You'd feel more comfortable talking to people that knew him. But I found it the other way round to the point where I just completely shut down, socialize, didn't socializing didn't happen.
Mm,
I wasn't interested anymore because my brother wasn't here. So why should I go out and do the things that he can't? But avoidance through conversations. Now it's changed. I want to talk about my brother because I'm so incredibly proud of him that I will talk about him every opportunity. And that's one thing that I think is so important to my clients. Keep saying their name. Don't ever feel that you're making someone feel awkward.
right.
Say their name, talk about them every opportunity. Um, yeah, that I used to feel awkward. And when I did talk about him, I used to think, oh, you're talking about your brother again.
Mm,
We've heard this before. That's what it makes you feel like.
gotcha.
You
Yeah.
should be over this by now.
Mm. Yeah, that's a hurtful thing to hear and even a hurtful thing to think that somebody may be feeling when talking to you when you're expressing your thoughts on a loss. Can you recall the moment that you said, I'm going to be a grief and trauma coach? That's what I'm going to do.
Um, yeah, not exactly the time. I knew I always wanted to help other people. I just didn't know how to go about it. And I think it was a lot of my colleagues at work where they're like, Sarah, you're such an empath.
Mm,
Like you spend most of the time talking to
I'm
your,
guilty.
yeah. Um, I spent most of the time talking to my clients about themselves, their problems, their family, even their grief, than we would do the actual work. So, um, in my team, I was always the empath.
Mm,
So it kind of steered me in that direction. And I was following my mentor for a long time, on social media. And then the opening come up and I was just like, I'm going for it.
mm,
I'm doing that. This is going 2025, 24 is going to be my year to make a difference.
mm.
One of my brother in absolute any way that I can. And that's what I did.
So here's a question, and this is maybe out of ignorance, but tell me how, um, like, what about funeral practices and things over in the UK versus here in the US? Like, um, I sit there and think obviously back to the Victorian era, but that's quite unfair. But that was a wild time, and I've actually had somebody come on this podcast, a professor from a university here in the U.S., and speak about the Victorian era and their funeral rituals and practices, and very, very informative. But I'm curious about today. Like, how do you feel like that your practices there are very similar to what they are in the US?
I guess I can only go by what I see on social media and
Sure.
I don't know, maybe not TV programs or films in America because they're a little bit far-fetched, aren't they? But um, our funeral parlors are our funeral homes. Okay, so let's go back to it takes about 2 weeks to get a burial or cremation in the
Really?
UK. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, sometimes here it's within days. If it is extended at a week or longer, it's probably due to a certain family member that can't arrive in time or something like that. But usually it's a very quick process here. It's within days.
it's not here. And I say 2 weeks as an absolute minimum. It could
Wow.
be up to 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. I would say that cremations are probably happen more than burials
Mm,
now.
yeah,
But again, you've got religions as well and your faiths and that dictates that.
sure.
But the wait, yeah, do you know what? I think about this often. Is it a good thing waiting or a bad thing? I don't know. Is it good to have it done in a few days? Or do you use that time to process and make sure everything's absolutely perfect? And could I have put together my brother's funeral in a few days? Absolutely not. It took so much planning to get it right because we wanted it to be him. It had to
Yeah.
be right for him to send him off, and honor him and celebrate his life.
That's very interesting, and I'm wondering maybe do Americans rush through it? Perhaps, and but does the healing process start quicker
Mm.
if there is I guess visual finality in front of us? Like that's a really good question. I wonder if there's any studies on that. I'll have to research, but that's interesting. In my own mind, and of course, this is just thinking from my own experience. This isn't right for everyone, but I almost feel like there would be this cloud hovering between the knowledge of the death of a loved one and that viewing and burial. It would just be, for example, you had mentioned the corporate world, and the corporate world here is very interesting. We assign certain um, amounts of time off from work. Like a parent or a sibling would be 5 days off from work. A cousin would be maybe a day. But when you get into more ambiguous or I guess disenfranchised griefs, like I lost my best friend 14 years ago. I lived with him and his brother for several years inside their family home. He was like a brother to me, but he was only listed as a best friend. So if I were to state, "Hey, I lost my best friend. I need some time off from work," they'd be like, "I'm sorry, it's your friend. You're not related to him." And it's like, wow. But
Yeah.
I can see um, more time to process being a good thing, or maybe something that is delaying portions of grief. And I don't know that I could prescribe what is right for anybody.
Yeah.
That's a determining factor for each person. But I don't know. That I did not know that it took 2 to 6 weeks for that to happen. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes it can be longer if post-mortems are and coroners are involved and they're inconclusive and things like that. The circumstances, um, yeah, it can be 2 months. It can be longer than that. So,
Wow. Wow.
but what you'll find is, so if you have a burial over here, you tend to go to a church first and have a service. Then you'll go on to the burial ground, which may be where the church is, or sometimes they have separate burial grounds, so you'll travel to that. We have crematoriums here, so like a church setting, and you have a service there, and then the body's there, the coffin's there at the front, and then um, yeah,
Mhm.
then that finishes. So I don't know. I see a lot of funeral parlours over yours. So ours are just like little offices where you go to sort things out. There's no ceremonies that take place in the funeral parlours. It's nothing like that.
Oh, okay.
They're just little offices that you might go in and sort to finalise the details and
Okay.
talk to someone on a personal level, but none of the ceremonies take place in funeral parlours.
Very, very interesting. Wow,
Mm.
you're teaching me some stuff about the UK. I did not know that.
That's when you said you was doing your talks at the funeral parlours. That would
Yeah.
um they don't have the space over here.
Okay.
It's just a little couple of rooms in a little like I say, an office setting.
Yeah, the funeral home that I was at doing a seminar recently, uh, it was the first funeral home here in the US that I felt like this doesn't even feel like a funeral home. It was very modernized. There was one part like um, the chapel area, I guess, was still, I won't say dated, but just it did remind me of a normal funeral home. But the rest of
Yeah.
it was very, very modern, and um, I didn't feel like I was in a funeral home. In fact, one of the funeral directors there is going to come on the podcast in January, and I'll talk to her about that. It was just I didn't feel. I don't know. It just didn't have that funeral home feel for the U.S. But it's interesting to state or to hear that no ceremonies take place there. That's they have, I guess, the office, the uh, chapel area, or a viewing area. This place even had like a place where you could have catering done, afterwards. Yeah, it was really top notch.
Yeah, yeah, that is a big difference than over here. Yeah, we will have a wake afterwards, usually in a village hall or a pub
Okay.
or somewhere like we had mine at my brother's favourite restaurant because
Really?
yeah, he helped do the menus up when it first he had friends that opened this restaurant and he did the menus with them because of his nutrition and it was his favourite place. So there was no other question, where it was going to be.
How
Um,
unique. Wow. Okay.
yeah, modern pub. I don't mean
Sure,
it was
sure.
a modern. It was it's more of a restaurant, and it had a lovely outdoors and scenery and things. But we tend to have the wakes. Yeah, it will be in a pub, restaurant, or that kind of setting.
Wow. Wow. Well, it seems like more honorable and obviously a place where your brother there's meaning there, right? Whereas we just put people in funeral homes here like, well, this is just what we do, you know.
Yeah.
um so I can see way more meaning and honor to someone who has passed away. Wow.
I think hence where it goes back to what is right or wrong with the time frame, because that's what I said to you. If it was a matter of a few days a week, I don't think we'd be able to plan all that in that time. So
Right.
much went into it. So many people to contact to get everything right, from the hearses, to talking to the funeral director, to the order of service, had to be precise. It had to be my brother Gary. It had to be in down to a T, to the place it was going, to the catering, to the food. I don't know if I do. We would have done that in a few days.
Yeah,
Or
here it's like, okay, grab some pictures of grandma. What was her favorite song? Let's do this service. Let's get them buried and let's move on. Maybe that's the thought process of Americans, that
yeah,
maybe we are moving on too quickly and not really taking the proper time to plan and honor the person and their life. Wow.
yeah.
You've really opened my eyes today, Sarah. Tell me more about your coaching and how you're helping people.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm nearly finishing my grief workshop, grief support workshop. So that's in person. I have five amazing ladies, um, and they're all their losses, they're all different,
Mm,
and they've come together because they wanted to be in a group. They wanted to feel, because I always do a kind of discovery call with them first. I tell them exactly what holistic grief coaching is. It's a group setting, what they can expect, what the difference is between, counselling and what I do. It's just for their expectations, really. Um, and if it's right for them, they might
mm,
feel it's not right for them, but equally, I might feel it's not right for them. So
yeah.
that kind of works both ways. Um, and they all said, I just want to be with somewhere where I don't feel I'm alone. I don't want to talk to my family. I don't want to talk to anybody that knows me. I just want to be, actually do want to be with strangers, but we're all going through the same thing.
Mm,
And that was the reason why I did the workshop. So, yeah, so I've got one more session left. Um, Next year I will run more niche workshops in person, but
yeah.
one off. So it would be sibling loss, parent loss,
Mm,
or run it like that. And then I do have my online clients, which are from all walks of life, as in, their grief journeys are all completely different, we are all completely different. And anticipatory grief, I think you call it a different word over there, don't you? It's not is it, do you call it
no, no,
anticipatory
we
grief?
use that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought that it was, but that you pronounced it a bit different in America.
Anticipatory.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just that's
It
just
means the same thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I think that's a big part that I had to work on myself with, because actually I ignored that. I think I didn't think about that part of my grief, because it was my brother never told us, only him and my dad knew how long he had. He never told us. He didn't
Mm,
want us to know. And
mm,
that um I respected that.
yeah. And what goes hand in hand with anticipatory grief is also ambiguous grief.
Mm.
Sometimes the maybe the mind is not there, but the body is still, still has life in it. And we see that a lot with diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that, where it's okay, I see mom or dad laying there, but they're not who they used to be.
Yeah.
But you've got that plus the anticipatory part where, okay, I know that they're going to pass away soon, and it's um, one thing that I found fairly recently. There was a Swiss study done, and I think it was all women who were about to lose their husbands, or once the study was complete, they were widows, and they asked them, did the anticipatory grief help or hurt you? Did it change anything? And they basically stated that nothing changed. It really just started their grief process earlier, but that they didn't grieve uh, any less than what they thought they would. once the physical loss truly occurred. It just
Yeah.
started that process sooner. And you see that also with caregivers, when a family member has to take care of their loved one, a lot of times they have to put their other roles on hold, and it seems so unfair. Like you park sister over here and you become caregiver, and it almost denies certain people certain roles that they're entitled to, that they've had their whole life, whether it's a wife watching her husband slowly slip away, and she's got to be the one that changes tubes or clothing or bedding, and she doesn't get those moments to be the wife that she's always been. That's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like I say, I didn't give that. I've had to really look in more into that and realize about my own journey and how that impacted me, even back to Gary's MS, because um, we saw my brother going to the gym twice a day to not even being getting out of bed.
Wow.
That's identity loss there and anticipatory grief, and didn't even acknowledge it.
Mm.
So yeah.
If you could think of like one major thing that you've learned about grief through the loss of your brother, what would it be?
Do you want a positive one or the truth? I don't
Both.
know.
I like
Mm,
both. Since you brought both to the table, let's hear them.
yeah, I know. Time lets us down,
Mm, mm.
but like I said to you in the beginning, you can turn your pain into purpose,
Yeah.
honor them, and you can live a life. And that's really hard for people to hear. And I totally relate to that. I didn't want to hear it for a very long time. 'Cause what purpose? How can you turn this pain into anything, um, you know, positive?
Yeah.
But you can.
Mm.
You can.
You speak about time letting us down. Can you speak more about that?
Yeah, I just feel that time is what was took my brother away in the end. I wanted more time with him, and
Yeah.
maybe that's selfish.
No,
Uh,
I don't think so. There's a song here from a country artist, and I've mentioned it a couple of times on this podcast, and he talks about 5 more minutes. Just give me 5 more minutes, and man, every time I hear that song, it tears me up, and it's like, um, if I gave you 5 more minutes with your brother, you would still want five more. It's truly never enough, because we know it all comes down to value, right? You saw value in the life of your brother. You knew who he was, and that's why no matter how much time we gave you, you would want more, right?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's situations every day, isn't there, whether it's my children, I don't know, my son finishing school or passing his driving test, and his kids when they hit these milestones and he's not here. It's always like, I just wish you were here to see that. It really hits you right here that they wasn't here to see that with you. I know he's all around me, and I know he's looking down, and I do believe that. But yeah, time is a big thing. But yeah, those milestones hit.
That's
Maybe
the
not Christmas, because he didn't like Christmas, but it does. It is a hard time of year. He didn't like Christmas, bless him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting, and I talk about that a lot. We have certain markers in our lives, and if I asked you what you were doing on December 11th last year, 10 years ago, or when you were 5 years old, you probably don't know unless there was a birthday or some kind of anniversary or something like that. But if I asked you what were you doing Christmas last year, or Christmas when you were 15 years old, or Christmas 5 years ago, you probably could tell me. There's certain things that are like bookmarks in our brain. It's like, oh yes, I can flip to that page really quickly. But
yeah,
certain days that have no meaning attached to them, it's like it's just another day. Those kind of slip through the hands of time. So
yeah,
very, very interesting how our brain kind of puts things in files and folders.
yeah, yeah. It really is. I know we know grief isn't linear, and we ride the waves and everything. And I think some people look at you and go, well, she's 7 years down the line now. She's got it all sorted. I don't have it all sorted. My I spin round like a compass all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's something, no matter how old you get, you're still reorganizing grief, in like I stated in those files and folders. It's, we do what's good for us during this time. Maybe we've got it sorted a certain way,
Yeah,
but there's no problem with trying to resort that and reorganize and file things down and maybe discard some things that no longer serve us purpose once we've maybe balanced the books on some things.
yeah.
So grief is it's such an odd thing, but it is a lifetime thing. It is something that you'll never ever get rid of.
That's it. And I speak about that to we did last night actually in my grief workshop. And I said, "Well, but Sarah, I can't stop these thoughts and I can't stop these visions and, the triggers." And I said, they're always going to be there. There is, I'm never going to you're never going to be fixed. So
Yeah,
don't look for a quick fix. Don't look for a fix. My
yeah,
role is to support and walk beside people. I said, my role is to bring you to a place of growth. And we have to go through it to
yeah,
get to whatever's the other side. You have to feel to heal, as I said to them last night. And that's the harsh truth of it, because until you do and suppressing it, you're not going to get to that place of growth.
yeah, yeah. I like that, and you're right. We have to feel to heal, but I always make sure that people know how to spell feel right. A lot of people try to fill, like fill a hole,
Yeah,
FILL, as
yeah,
opposed to feel, FEEL. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of bad things people can do to try to fill that void. And
yeah,
sometimes you have to feel the void first.
yeah, definitely. That is the feel that I meant, not the FI, not
Yeah,
the L.
yeah. No, I knew where you were going. But yeah, I always try to make sure people know the difference on that.
But you do see it. You see so many people try to go from one thing to another. Right, I'm going to try meditating. No, that didn't work. All right, I'm going to jump to something else and something. They're constantly trying to find something to fill that void,
Right,
that hole. It doesn't exist. It doesn't happen like that. You're not going to just go to one yoga class and that's going to tick that box. It
right.
doesn't work like that. And I think that is again, we strip it back and take it back into the body and the somatic way and understanding the way that the body works. So
Yeah. Well, Sarah, we're at the end of our hour. It's been a wonderful pleasure speaking with you and learning about UK funerals as well. That was very informative for me. But certainly, I appreciate the way that you honor your brother and have found meaning through loss and how you're helping others. But I want to leave you with any final words, any thoughts that you want to close us out with here. Anything that you think we may have missed, or anything you want to say to the listeners?
no, just reach out. You know, whatever you think you're feeling. And sometimes we do think that we're alone in our thoughts, and it's not normal. It is normal. It is normal what you're feeling and what you're going through. All of our grief is individual. We know that. Everything is valid, and they don't need to walk it alone. They
Yeah.
really don't. Reach out to somebody, whether that's a professional, a counselor, or a grief coach. But, you know, we're here. We're
Yeah.
here to walk with them and walk beside them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the hardest part is reaching out that first time, walking through that door the first time, making
Yeah,
that phone call that first time and stating, you know what, I don't have it all together. And I think that's one of the bravest things that we can say.
definitely. Yeah, they're not alone. And like you say, it does take so much. You know, I said that to my ladies when they reached out to me and I advertised for the group. You should be so proud of yourself. You've sent that text, you've sent that message, you've sent that DM. You know, you did that. That is a huge, huge thing in itself,
Yeah.
reaching out. And I totally relate and I get that. That's what I stand by. I'm raw and I'm real and, you know, I'm honest and I've walked that path and I'm still on my journey.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
as we all will be for the
That's
rest of
right.
our lives.
That's right. Sarah, thanks for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Grief Observed podcast. If you want to be on the show, please reach out to me, and I will also have Sarah's information in the show description. So we'll catch you on the next episode. Have a great day.